So basically, I am not going to be giving you, just like in for the midterm, I'm not going to be handing you a packet of here's what you need or here's your exam review. Your exam review is twofold. The main thing is the big assignment, all the S12, S13, S14, all those. Every third. That is due the day of the exam, or if you're opting out, I would turn it in on Tuesday because that might be the last day you're going to be here. Remember, if you're taking the exam, it's part of your exam grade. If you are opting out, then it is a 50-point homework assignment. Okay? All right. What I'm going to do today and tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday is basically just give you a checklist of here's what you need to know out of each chapter. If I put something on the board and you don't know what I mean, or if I write a problem on the board and you don't remember how to solve it, ask. Otherwise, I'm going to kind of assume you already know it and just move on to the next item. Fair enough? Okay, so Chapter 5. You need to know you need to be able to tell me whether something is linear or not. And there's 3 different types of questions I can ask with that. I can give you an equation form. I can give you a set of points. Or I can give you a table. What does linear basically mean? Straight line. So if I give you a set of points, plot those points. If it's a straight line, you're good. If I give you an equation, what kinds of things are not linear? Well, if you see something like an exponent, x squared, not linear. If you see absolute values, something like that. If you see square roots, something like that, not linear, right? These would be very easy multiple choice exam questions where I basically just say, which of these equations are linear? If it is linear, you should see something like 4x minus 3, right? Single x, single y. Remember, you can't have something like x times y, right? They have to be separated by a plus or a minus. Easy multiple choice questions with those. So make sure you can tell whether something is linear or not. Can guarantee you there's going to be at least 1 or 2 questions where I ask you, what is the x-intercept or what is the y-intercept? If I give you something like 2x minus 7y is equal to 28, and I'll just say, what's the x-intercept or what's the y-intercept? How do you find the x-intercept? Anybody remember? How do you find the x-intercept? Make the y 0 and then solve it. So that'd be 0. You get 2x equals 28. So x is 14, right? How do you find the y-intercept? You make the x 0. So negative 7y equals 28. So y is equal to negative 4. Fair enough? Graphically, where are the x and the y-intercepts? Well, the x-intercept will be on the x-axis. The y-intercept will be on the y-axis. So you'll see something like that. Here's the x-intercept. There's the y-intercept. I could give you a very simple question on the exam where I give you a graph something that's actually graphed and say, what is the x-intercept or what is the y-intercept? All you got to do is tell me where it crosses the x-axis or y-axis. Slope. You're going to need to be able to find the slope. Anybody remember the slope formula? No, that's slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. What's the slope formula is a fraction. So if I give you like 8, -4, and what? Hey, don't hit the keyboard. If I give you 8, -4, and -2, 10, and say, what is the slope of that line that intersects those 2 points? How do we find the slope? You subtract the y's on top, and then you subtract the x's on the bottom. So basically you would just do like -4 minus 10 over 8 minus a -2. And then just simplify. Simple enough? The rest of this chapter was basically graphing. There is a question where it asks you, is this direct variation? Do you remember what direct variation equations look like? That was something where it's just like y equals kx. Basically, they are lines. What's the y-intercept always going to be? 0. It could look like this, or it could look like that, or it could look like this. But basically, they're just lines that always go through 0, 0. So if I give you, in a direct variation scenario, 4 choices where I say y equals 3x minus 2, 4x minus 2y equals 10, 2y equals 9x minus 8, and 4x equals 10y. Which of those actually is a direct variation? A, B, C, or D? Which one? Why? Why is it D? Because this one isn't because of the 2. This one isn't because of the 10. This one isn't because of the 8. This one doesn't have like a constant attached to it. So yeah, this one I could simplify and just get it into y equals kx form. So D would be a direct variation. Easy? We need to know slope-intercept form. What's slope-intercept form? Y equals mx plus b. There is going to be questions where I give you something like y equals -2/3 x plus 5 and say graph it. Well, where do I start this graph? Up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And where do I go from there? Down 2 over 3. Down 2 over 3. Down 2 over 3. It'll look something like that. Now, the types of questions you're going to see on the exam, it could be, here's an equation, which graph matches that, and I'll give you 4 different graphs. I could give you one graph and say which of these equations matches that graph. Or I could give you 2 points and say put it in slope-intercept form. If I gave you those like 2 points like 5, -2, and -3, 4. and say, find the equation that goes through those two lines. What's the first thing you got to find? Slope. So negative 2 minus 4 over 5 minus a negative 3, which is going to be negative 6/8 or negative 3/4. So I know the y equals negative 3/4 x plus b, but I don't know the b. How do I find the b that goes with it? Pick a point, either point, doesn't matter, and plug it in. So what would go in for y? Negative 2 equals negative 3/4 times 5. And then you would just solve that for b. So this one I would multiply. 5 times 3 is 15. So I'd get negative 15/4 plus b. I got to add that to the negative 2. And the negative 2 is the same thing as negative 8/4. So 15/4 minus 8/4 would be 7/4, and there's my b. So my final answer would be something like y equals negative 3/4 x plus 7/4. Now, that was an ugly one because I just kind of made up the numbers. Odds are on the exam I won't give you one that has ugly fractions like that, but be prepared to do those. Do you remember point slope form? That was something, an example would be something like y minus 5 equals 2 x plus 3. What point does that go through? What's the point that this came from? What is it? And then what's the slope of this one? Where do we find the slope in that equation? It's 2. And the point comes from the 3 and the 5, but remember the points are always opposite. So it would actually be negative 3 and positive 5. And again, I could give you this and say draw the graph. So basically you're going to start at that point, go up 2 over 1, something like that. Or I'll give you a graph and say which of these points, which of these equations matches that line. Are we good with point slope form? That's pretty much it out of those. What do parallel lines have? Same slope. Oops, that was weird. What do perpendicular lines have? So if I give you y equals 7/3 x minus 4, and I say, what's a perpendicular line to that? What would the slope have to be if it's perpendicular? Well, it wouldn't be positive 3/7, it would be negative. Remember, it's got to be the opposite reciprocal. And then the other point doesn't matter. So, opposite reciprocal slopes. If it's positive, make it negative, and then you also got to flip it. Okay? All right, that's about it. Have you guys started S12 yet? Has anyone started S12? Do you have any questions so far on that review? All right. Use the rest of the hour. Get S12 done. If you have questions, let me know.